Hey everybody. I just want to take a quick moment to talk about the coronavirus. I keep hearing all these people out there talking about how, we should be more worried about the flu, and the flu kills this many people and infects that many people, and blah, 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 blah. Quite frankly, just stop. Please just stop. This is a completely different thing than the flu, okay? I'm not saying we should panic. I'm not saying we should freak out about it or anything, but we have to take this seriously for what it is. And to be honest, treating it as if it's nothing to sneeze about, no pun intended, is not the solution. So the flu is contagious. It has an R0 value of like 1.2 to 2, meaning for every person who gets it, they're going to infect 1.2 to 2 other people. You know, that you look at that and look at how it spreads. The coronavirus, however, has an R0 number of between 2 and 6. And I say between 2 and 6 because there's so many different reports there because it's still really early, and that R0 number changes based on reporting and everything, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But if you're infecting 2 to 6 other people, that is by far more contagious than the seasonal flu. And add to that the fact that because this is a novel virus, meaning a new virus, nobody has any immunity to it. This virus has a much higher percentage of people who will need to be hospitalized if they get it than with the regular flu. We know people die from the flu every year. We understand that. It's usually elderly, young, people with immunocompromised systems and stuff like that. And they need to be hospitalized as well. But this is worse. You're going to have probably approximately 1 out of every 4 people who gets the coronavirus who is going to need not just to go to the hospital and see a doctor, but to actually be put on breathing assistance and in an ICU. That's a problem. And the reason it's a problem we'll touch on in a little bit. So the third thing here is that the numbers that are coming out of China and being monitored around the world may not truly reflect what's going on here. And there's a few reasons for why that's the case. Now, first of all, we know China has state-run media. We know China covered up the SARS thing when SARS happened. I personally don't trust the Chinese government as, to give us accurate information. However, the true beginning of this outbreak was suppressed by the Chinese government, and they were arresting journalists for talking about the virus and talking about what was happening. And that doesn't give us any reason to believe them now. There is potentially, we're talking, I think, early December when the first cases of this were first popping up. And when it started, people were saying, oh no, here's SARS is back, SARS, because they didn't know that it was a different virus. They just, whatever. And those were the people being arrested for talking about it, okay? So what reason do we really have to believe them now? So think about it this way as well. The infected and death rate could be much higher than reported due to the fact that the hospitals in Wuhan and other areas near the epicenter of the outbreak were overrun with people, okay? These are people who are waiting to be seen. They're there because they're sick. They are waiting to be seen, and they're there for hours and hours and hours, and eventually some of them probably left because they weren't seen, so they're not counted into the numbers. The people who were not tested and just told to go home and take a Tylenol or whatever, those people are not being counted. They're not being tested, they're not being counted. At some point there were rumors that they ran out of the testing solution and stuff, so they couldn't even test people. And the hospitals were overrun. Okay, so many of these sick were not confirmed to have the virus and are not included in the statistics. And since the hospitals are overwhelmed with no beds, no treatments, people who came there who were very sick, who needed ICU treatment, like that 1 out of 4 number we were talking about, how many of them were turned away and went home and died? And we don't know it yet because they're under quarantine. People aren't leaving their houses. People aren't going to check on their neighbors and stuff because they're afraid of getting sick. So we're not going to know the actual true numbers for quite some time. And being that this is in China, we may never get the full, actual, accurate data of what's going on there. So now that we understand some of the various factors that can contribute to the likelihood that these numbers may not be accurate and reflect the true breadth of the whole situation, let's add to the fact that they quarantined entire cities in China. Almost 60 million people locked down in full or partial lockdown. This is like an unprecedented action, and unfortunately it came a little too late because they had suppressed this stuff by arresting the journalists and keeping it under wraps. But, hey, there's nothing to worry about. We should worry more about the flu, apparently. So, as this virus continues to spread here in the US, up until today, which I actually recorded this video prior to today, and I had to redo it because the things changed overnight. So up until today, we were being told, oh, it's not spreading in the US. We should be more worried about the flu virus. And, as the hours and the days pass by, more and more countries are taking the threat more seriously. We have countries like Russia closing their borders with China, airlines stopping flights, Australia going as far as quarantining suspected cases on Christmas Island, and the people that they rescued from the Wuhan area and all that. Meanwhile, up until yesterday, we were continuing to allow flights from China with passengers disembarking with no more than a temperature check. And we know the virus can spread while it's being incubated. So taking temperatures is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. It's like just to keep you calm because it literally does no good. You're not going to show a fever. It doesn't do anything. So it took up until yesterday for American Airlines to cancel some flights. Now, that wasn't even our government saying no more flights to China or whatever. This was the airline's decision. Meanwhile, they're still saying, oh, don't panic. There's nothing to worry about. Still, the flu is a bigger risk, blah, 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 blah. So all this is happening. The WHO yesterday was having talks about possibly declaring a global emergency. And here in the United States, the media is pushing the seasonal flu, don't panic. I've actually seen articles urging people not to wear masks or gloves. Don't buy them. Don't panic buy them. Don't stock up on them. Don't have them. Don't wear them. And it's like, how stupid is that? I mean, I'm 100% aware that the mask is no guarantee. And in fact, if it's not the right type of mask, if it's not correctly fitted, if it's not worn correctly, if it's not donned and doffed correctly, then you might as well not wear it if you're trying not to get infected. However, if the mask is worn, fitted, and handled properly, it can help reduce the amount of virus that you're taking in when you're around other people. But it's probably not going to stop you from actually getting sick. My issue, though, is that due to the long incubation period of this, and this virus is new, we're still learning about it. But you have to consider that due to the long incubation period in which a person can be asymptomatic, meaning